Well, who's in? I'll tell you who's in. We're in on a Friday, as I see Rick Morse in the chat already saying, thank God it's Friday. On a Friday, July 26th, the PHLY Sixers podcast, as we discuss, as Kyle said in this tweet, the way too early lineup and rotation predictions, but it's never too early. You know why? Because we're a basketball podcast, so we have to talk about things, and that's what we're going to do alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is here producing the show. We already see Igavini, Rick Morse. We've got Shedva in there, and I'm sure a ton of you are already there as well. We really appreciate it again on a Friday as we get ready to look at how this roster will shape up once things actually count. Way too early, even though we're not the coach. We are going to be the coaches right now because this is how we think the lineup is going to look. So we'll talk about a lot of different lineups as we see Jess jumping in there as well. Hey, Jess, a lot of different lineups with the Embiid and non-Embiid.
Hello to Gene also.
Oh, I didn't see Gene. I'm sorry about that.
Snuck in there.
Snuck in there. You mentioned Gene at the end of the show that we had to say hello to Gene late. So what's up to Gene? And so we'll get to the starters, the Embiid, non-Embiid, all kinds of stuff.
The first thing we have to get to, I don't know if Bree can zoom in on Devon. Devon is wearing a Grateful Dead hat purchased at the Sphere with his rainbow dancing bears. I'm very jealous of it. I'm regretful that I did not buy one of my own while we were at the Sphere.
Did you see I was a team player, folks?
See, not only did he go, he got some merch. That's how much fun that we had when we were out in Las Vegas.
You wanted to buy the hat or the shirt for me.
I said, I'm buying you this shirt,
You
Devon.
did.
And you said, do not do that.
Yes, I was like, don't worry about it. It's all good. But we do make sure we take care of each other when we need each other. We always look out for each other. But I was like, Kyle, I already have my tie-dye Nike that they didn't know I had. So don't worry about the shirt. I'll just get a hat. So I got the hat.
It's not only just that you had it. It's just that in like the 10 shirts or so you would pack to go to Vegas,
it was a tie-dye Nike shirt. Perfect.
Yes. So
the king of the Sphere, Devon Givens, is here hosting the show.
And it was cold as hell in there too, but I got through it for 3. How long were we there? It was like 3 hours, right?
It was 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, it was cool. But we were gone. It was good. It was a great time. I got my hat, folks. Kyle's jealous, and I never thought that Kyle would be jealous of the headwear there with the dead.
As I told you before the show, I just could not bring another piece of merch home, or I think I would have been in a little bit of trouble. We'll put it that way.
Absolutely. Yep. So we didn't want to get Kyle in trouble unless we bought it, and then maybe she'll be okay
story
with it.
For another day.
Story for another. Well, we already started it, so
that's
it's all
true.
good on the Friday. But no, we have some lineup things, some lineup construction that we want to throw at all of you. See what you guys think. See what you gals think about how the lineup should look for Nick Nurse's team, how things may shape up once we get to training camp when they're going through it. Because one thing that Nick Nurse talked about, Kyle, when you were with the group as we had that impromptu third press conference on Tuesday on the side with Nick Nurse, he talked about it. You mentioned it on the show again on Tuesday, but just kind of laying out before we give our lineups some of the things that he said about not necessarily being locked in on anything as of right now. Of course, that's what his training camps are all about.
Yeah. Now, I will say a couple of things in response to that. One, some of the influence on who signs here is what their agents are told, what they and their agents are told about what your role is going to look like. That's not something that ever gets or it definitely gets discussed publicly by people like us or fans, but it never gets discussed by Nick or Daryl or the players where it's like, hey, my agent was told this. Mm-hmm. There are the locker room politics that you have to deal with. It's going to be part of the point I'm going to make in a little bit. But I do agree otherwise that I think that Nick generally wants to go into this camp with maybe not a blank slate, but close to it and say, look, we want to see how I have my general ideas of how I want to set up and who I think fits together. But until they're on the floor together, until you see, oh, hey, Caleb Martin, the regular season shooter, is not Caleb Martin, the playoff guy. There could be some alterations. There could be some tweaks based on what they see down in training camp. I will not say where they're going for training camp quite yet because I don't think it's public knowledge, but it's somewhere we're potentially excited about. I would put it that way. And I'll be excited to be there, but I'll be additionally excited to see these guys take the floor together for the first time. Absolutely. So I think we're all probably as far as the starting lineup, I think we probably all expect the same thing. Yeah. And I think we have some pretty graphics that Bree put together to.
Just a quick fun fact, building on Kyle's point about expectations with agents and players coming into a new situation. We had to agree to Kyle that he would get 35 minutes.
Right as the graphic comes up, Derek's like, here, how about a quick aside?
35 minutes each show
best, man.
that Kyle would be able to talk. That was in writing, so just tangentially related.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Trying to make a joke, and you guys kill it.
I think it was more that you needed to talk less.
Let's get to the graphic of our potential starters for the Sixers this upcoming campaign.
Chalk.
So, all chalk right there. But we have talked to a lot of people that are like, there's an opening fifth starter spot in the rotation. No, there's not. This is probably what it's going to look like, and it should look like this, at least for this particular group that the 76ers have right now as far as the players on the roster. This is where they have a lot of flexibility with Maxey at the one guard. And then you have, I'm not even putting 2, 3, and 4 on there because they're just all wings with Oubre, George, and Caleb Martin with Embiid at the 5 spot. That's how we all look at it. Kyle, when you look at that, why did you stick with that grouping and that one well, we all agreed on that one. Why did you stick to that particular starting lineup?
Yeah, I mean, beyond how I look at all these players, I think it's just what the messaging has been from the organization, right? Is that they want to be switchable. They want to be more of a Nick Nurse team. They want to have guys at 2 through 4 that you can pass assignments off to one another. On top of that, we heard from Tyrese Maxey that, as he's watching the rotation being built, free agents being acquired this summer, the part of his driving belief to his offseason workouts is like, I need to be able to get there. That's part of why, we were talking the other day, Devon, about him up there with his broad shoulders up on the podium that everybody's paying attention to. He wants to be able to be part of that 1 through 4. And so then it's just, you switch everybody else and you have Joel at the rim and funnel everything to him. And it's been a point we've made many times over, but it's worth mentioning again. If they're going to get around the lack of like a good secondary rebounder, which I don't really think they have in the rotation period, they need to guard the yard. They need to have guys on the floor who can stop who's in front of them, who are attentive off-ball guys. And that's who's between the bookends, right? If we have Joel here, Tyrese here, Paul in the middle. The other 2 guys have to be able to do that defensive role and shoot a little bit, which is a bit of a concern with Caleb and with Kelly, that Kelly's below average. Caleb is right around average in the regular season. So that would be my main concern, and I'm going to use that as a jumping off point after I hear some thoughts from you guys. But yeah, I think right now it'd be silly to think it's going to be anything other than those 5. And the interesting part is once you get to the bench.
Yeah. Derek, Gene Ross says he's the 5th starter. So he's not in your Gene. Yeah. Gene. Then Winona said, no, I'm the 5th starter. Okay. But, that's a whole nother thing.
Come to camp.
Yeah.
I'll give them an invite.
No doubt. No question about it.
They need to get up to they can get up to 20.
Yeah. And they have 2 more spots. Yeah. Get a little training camp invite. So how do you look? We all agreed again. Why did you go with the 3 wings alongside Maxey and Embiid?
Going back to something you said earlier, because you mentioned how people are talking about they need a 5th starter or whatnot. The way I view it, they have 3, no doubt about it, starters. And obviously Maxey, Paul George, and Embiid. 3 guys who could contend in Martin, Oubre, and Gordon. And the 3 guys who can contend, are they perfect starters? No. Any one of those 3 spots could be upgraded. That KJ Martin balloon payment / human trade chip coming into play in January and February as we get closer to the trade deadline. Which spot you would want to upgrade, I think is going to be something that we spend a lot of time on this show talking about. But certainly it could be any one of those 3. So I think it is certainly, like I said, etched in stone? No. But I think they have 6 guys contending for 3 remaining spots. To Kyle's point, I veered on the side of switchability. That is something that I've really wanted around Joel Embiid for as long as he's pretty much been here. After they got rid of, moved on from the Ben Simmons era, that's one of the things they sort of lost a little bit of. Now they have a bunch of similarly sized forwards who can at least credibly, outside of Kelly, because Kelly is a bad shooter, but everyone else can credibly shoot a little bit. I really want to see a little more scheme diversity in what they do defensively. I think they have a chance to do that. I think that was one of the benefits of signing Martin. Hopefully someone like Kelly Oubre can grow a little bit. Martin's one
Maybe
of those.
they'll finally have a good zone defense with having wings that are big enough to play it.
They'll play it anyway. It doesn't really matter. But one thing that intrigued me with Martin, over the last couple of years on his unguarded catch and shoots, he shot 43% last year, 45% the year before that. Over the last 3 years, he's shooting over 40% on unguarded catch and shoot shots. Problem is two things. One of them, that's a small sample size. Part of the reason that's a small sample size is because Miami didn't have any real true shot creators. They didn't have anyone to really have the kind of gravity that you expect Joel Embiid to have and be able to create the shots that Joel Embiid can, and specifically that the Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey two-man game can. So obviously, I don't expect him to be a 43 to 45% catch and shoot player, but if he's been a 36, 37% overall, can that go up a tick or two to like 38, 39, 40% now that he's getting more of his diet on wide open shots? I want to tie someone like Martin to Embiid a lot early on just to take those low volume numbers, see whether or not he can maintain his efficiency on a higher volume. And I think that would be great if he can just be not a 35% shooter, but like a 37% shooter. That opens up the world for him.
So for me, looking at it, and we're all similar again with the lineups, but it was just about the fact that I have 3 guys in the starting lineup that I know are going to probably get close to 90 points in the starting 5 with those 3 in Maxey, Embiid.
What a crazy thing to think, by the way.
Yeah, you get 90 points from, and you could get close to 90 points. It's probably going to be more 70, 75.
Yeah, I mean, if Joe's getting 35 and
Tyrese getting 25 and Paul George probably get 22, 23. We're looking at, they're cooking. So with that, I look at the other 2, and it's all about the other end of the floor where we're talking about the defensive side, where Paul George already said that he looked forward to coming in here, already knowing his role of coming here to get buckets and defend the best player on the other end of the floor on the wing. That's not a big man, and that's his assignment. So with that, the other 2, the switchability that we discussed when Caleb Martin was added, when Paul George was added, and of course when Kelly Oubre re-signed with the Philadelphia 76ers, you just looked right at it and said, this lineup has an opportunity and the ability to do some fun things with that group. The other part, though, when I go to the offensive side, forget about the shooting part, is also when you get in transition, the only one that's going to trail is Joel Embiid. And that's not a bad trail man as a 5 at the top of the key, knowing that he can knock down that three-pointer. But if you're looking at it and they get out on a fast break and it's a balanced floor or an unbalanced floor in favor of the 76ers, and you have Maxey with the ball in his hands in the middle, 2 of the guys on the wing, another one already sprinting maybe to the corner to take someone with him, I like the fact that you have, again, these versatile athletic guys that can get to a certain spot on the floor to make the defense think of what that is going to look like. We know that there's a lot of rebounds. If they do secure the board, which we've talked about, that still being an issue that they're going to have to correct, maybe getting some more size in the front court. But should they get that board, you have 4 guys who can catch a rebound, 5, because Joel will do it too. But in talking with the speed and all, you have 4 guys, not Embiid, that's going to take the ball off the rim, that can turn and then go and get out in transition. Ideally, you give it up when you're Caleb Martin. I feel more comfortable with Kelly Oubre probably in the middle of the floor, but he's also one that, hey, give it to George or Maxey, but you grab it off the board and you go. And they have an opportunity to get out in transition with these players to have the floor again, have them off balance on the defensive end of the floor, where you can take advantage of some of those fast break points where we talk quite a bit about that, Derek, where we would say, man, these transition buckets from the other side from the other team, they're really destroying the Sixers. Yeah. They have an opportunity now with this 5, and then who knows what happens with the bench when you have Eric Gordon coming off, spotting up in the corner from behind the three-point line, and maybe some others, Kyle Lowry, Jared McCain as well, and certainly these guys, Tyrese Maxey can do so as well. I like that aspect. The fun part about the Caleb Martin piece is wait till everybody really gets used to watching him for 82 games, and he'll have his days where he goes off and he drops 30 like he did against the Celtics in the out-of-body experience. But then it's the other times where his shot's not falling. It's that beeline kind of jump shot that's going to tick a lot of people off because there's no arc on it and all of that. But that's why I went with the 5, the versatility there with those 3 alongside Maxey and Embiid, the scoring you're going to get from Maxey and Embiid that's bookend, and certainly with Paul George with his 20+, the ability to do all those things defensively, switchability, and then the other part on the offense in transition, being able to get out, go, get some easy buckets on the other end, and have some fun where it's going to be some good times there at the center, or whatever it's going to be named once they figure out
right now,
that
it's
part.
just the center.
Well, I've been calling that forever, and that was like a thing I had to do
Yeah.
in the other job. But yeah, I think that once we get a chance and the fans get a chance to see them in the open floor, get a chance to run some of the offensive stuff that I'm very curious to see.
I've got a good idea for the arena
Nick
name.
Nurse is
The
gonna
Crumble
do.
Cookie
The
Center.
Crumble Cookie Center. Well, that guy's gone now, so he might invest
That's
in
what
it.
I'm saying. If you want to stay connected to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
trade Tobias for it'd be literally one crumble cookie, right?
So Derek, my guy says though in the chat, should they flip Martin and Oubre? And he followed up saying, not that it matters, but isn't Martin a good guard defender?
It doesn't.
It doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
In terms of like positional skill set, like I still think you need sort of like a one, and I don't even really care about that so much, but like there's somebody who's going to be a better ball handler and passer and setup man than the rest of them. You can name him the one, and you sort of need a five because he needs to anchor your defense and call out your defensive schemes and clean up the glass. Everything else is pretty much positionalist. I do look at it a lot more of like you've got guards, you've got wings, and you've got forwards, and you've got centers. And the Sixers kind of have like one guard, three wings, and a center in that starting lineup.
And for the team, they have like 600 guards and no forwards, basically.
Yep. So
which is an interesting place to be in.
It doesn't mean that there's like no positions, but it's mostly just so coaches have a shorthand way of saying something while they're talking about plays and sets.
Well, we have to talk a lot more about those guys that you just mentioned.
I also have a wild card starter idea that we will get to after we thank our excellent friends who help us do the show.
Very interesting. Yeah. Oh, go get him, Rick.
It is definitely not going to be Ricky.
Ah, come on.
Spoiler alert.
Come on. All right, we'll do that when we get back here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. All right. I also have to tell you about Bet Parks Casino because look, when the basketball season rolls around, you might look at the sports book, but they also have the casino in general. It's a great place, perfect place for after work get-togethers, date night, or girls' night out. We have a lot of the ladies in our chat. They've already been talking about getting together, including Bree in their outing. Well, this might be the place for you to go. Sip on some tantalizing drinks and soak up those warmer weather good vibes right now at Parks Casino. Parks Casino, this is how you win. Enjoy at the casino, your choice, of course. Epic $5 happy hour with great food, drink every Wednesday through Sunday at the Liberty Bell Gastro Pub, having done shows there in the past. And then we see how the setup is when you go out there in the Gastro Pub and they have like a sunroom area. It's fantastic with the spread is all laid out. You can enjoy $5 drafts of Ford Stout, Victory Seasonal, or Parks Pills. How about that? Pilsners. Enjoy $5 glasses of Cabernet.
Didn't know Parks had a Pills. No,
got to see.
That's a reason to go now.
Reason to go now. Enjoy the drink of the summer. $5 Twisted Tea, Frozen Whiskey, Arnold Palmer's. You like that one. All right. Plus feast on the flavor pack. $5 small plates or braised short ribs, sliders, hot and honey chicken sliders. That's actually really, really good. Or rotisserie chicken flatbreads as well. The all new Parks Casino, the epic $5 happy hour. And that's happening right now. Summer is approaching. In the middle of it, we're getting closer towards the end. You got to make sure you get out there, have some fun right now, and take advantage of all these great things. You can also check out some shows, as we told you before, the best cover bands every weekend, only at 360 Lounge, headliners every weekend at the 1,500-seat Excite Center at Parks Casino. I also saw one with Tiffany Haddish on September 27th. Have some other people coming out. I like a good comedy show. Maybe I'll have to see if we can pull some strings and go see some shows there and laugh a little bit one of those nights at Parks Casino. Visit parkscasino.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Parks Casino, this is how you win.
We are barely more than a month into summer. Don't go cutting my summer short.
My bad.
I'm not going to have any of that. We
Parks
are not
Casino, we got to take that back.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Indeed. We here at PHLY, we're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Just ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Did the Grateful Dead go to Indeed to get John Mayer to help out?
I don't know, but wherever he was on the festival circuit for a long time, so I think they probably crossed paths at one point or another. Mm-hmm. A lot of respect out there in the music world.
We certainly can't say that they didn't go to Indeed, though.
Yeah, what would that Indeed resume look like for John Mayer?
I was going to go a different direction where you were talking about the drink of the summer.
Yeah.
You know what I heard the drink of the summer is?
What's that?
The Batanga. You ever had one?
No.
It is, well, you're not a drinker, so maybe Derek has had one.
Have you had a Batanga?
It's lime juice, Coke, tequila, salted rim. It's from... I believe it's from Mexico specifically. They drink it there. So I don't know how it became the drink of the summer. I think it was like a bunch of food bloggers went to Mexico, and it's like Columbus discovered America with air quotes. It was like white people discovered this drink. And I was like, well, this is the drink of the summer now.
Speaking of drinking, and Devon, there are some people in the chat that claim that you owe them a drink. I don't know what that's all about.
It's the ladies when we were talking about them in Vegas.
I still have not had a Batanga, so I'm curious. I was like, so because Coke and tequila doesn't really sound like the best thing to me, but it's that lime juice that makes the difference. So
I'm good for it, ladies. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. Whether it's we might have some surprises during the basketball season as well. So we would love, of course, for you to be there. Should we have some of those things taking place during the season, kind of like what we did last season, and pretty organized. We'll have it straightened out, and once we get there, of course, maybe before then, but even still, I'll take care of it. No worries at all. All right.
My curveball.
Your curveball.
For the starters.
Let's get to the curveball starter. What does this look like? Curious.
Who are you picturing in your head when I say this? You guys both were like Ricky, but I think that was for the bit more than it was a serious answer.
KJ.
Nah. Kyle likes shooting too much. Eric Gordon's the only one I would consider.
So I was going to say, this is not even about what I want. Don't shoot the messenger here, everyone.
He's going Andre Drummond.
You're going Kyle.
No, you were on it. It's Eric Gordon.
Okay.
I think there is a non-zero chance that Eric Gordon starts.
Yeah, I agree. He, like I said, when I started this, there was six people that I would consider. Yeah.
So there are a few reasons for this. One, I brought up the politics earlier. Eric Gordon declining his option and then being one of the very first minimum, or not, the low value contract guys that they signed. That normally telegraphs like someone was given some assurances that they're going to have a pretty sizable role for this team. So that's number one. Number two, the shooting, right? Like he is very comfortable and confident to call him just a spot up guy, I think does a disservice to his shooting, because he's comfortable as like a 30 feet out spot up shooter. You can remember Brett Brown used to have what they called the 4-point line. Eric Gordon's taken a lot of 4-pointers and is like okay with just hanging back there and taking those shots. And if you really want to optimize the amount of spacing that you're getting for Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese, Maxey, that's a path to getting it. But as we move into this next section, the bench groups, part of the other reason that I think you might end up seeing him start is that if he gets put into that first bench group with Joel Embiid, either you have to just play him with that group, or you're going to potentially end up in scenarios where you have lineups where it's like Kyle Lowry, Tyrese Maxey, and Eric Gordon all on the floor at the same time. I would like to avoid that at basically all costs. And I'm not sure how you give Eric Gordon a role that's sizable enough for him to be happy with, while also avoiding the defensive pitfalls of having 8 billion small guards on the roster. And so that's why I'm not saying that I endorse it. I'm not saying I want it. I'm not even saying that I want Eric Gordon as a like nailed on rotation player every night. But if we're going in assuming that's going to be the case, and I think all of us probably believe that he's going to be, at least initially, one of the 9 to 10 guys will be in that first rotation, I think that might be a way around some of the pitfalls of playing him.
Interesting. Oh, look, let's go back to
that would be over Kelly.
Yeah, because
so
then the other side of it is like Kelly then comes in off the bench and he's more of that.
That's where I was going.
Spark plug, energy, athleticism. And I think that makes sense for him, right?
6-man to come in and wreak havoc. And as people like to say, the chaos thing going on right now.
And he'll take more shots,
and
right?
Will.
If he comes, so if we're assuming that Joel stays in, Tyrese, Paul come out, Kelly comes into a situation where now he has more opportunities to score, create, shoot, handle, however you want to frame it. And that might end up working out better for him. So we'll see. I think the good thing is I don't think they're going to be necessarily married to one group. I don't think that's how Nick Nurse looks at it. I don't think they should do it that way. But I just wanted to throw that out there as something I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks or so as this roster has shaken out.
Yeah, so the Kelly piece is the one that I go back to Melton. I go back to Oubre when we would discuss them last season. I think ideally in their perfect roles, they are guys that come off the bench and do their work. And I still think that Kelly Oubre is that. The only thing when we talk about this specific roster and the construction and the lineup that we put together already, it's because of what he did show us in the big spots there. Once Melton was out, Kelly Oubre maintained that. He didn't lose it because we kept waiting. All right, somehow, some way he's going to lose it and he's going to be back on the bench. But Nick Nurse stuck with him. And even in the postseason when Kyle Lowry was starting and you needed some more scoring off the bench, they couldn't find it from anywhere. Kelly Oubre was still in that starting 5. So he did it enough where, at least for right now, the Eric Gordon thing is intriguing for the shooting and all of that and the balance of the rotation to make things look much better with Embiid on the floor. But ideally, yeah, if you had it the right way, Kelly Oubre, for me, is still a guy that's going to come off the bench as a legit number 6 guy, 6 starter basically, and the 6th man that's just going to come in and do Kelly Oubre stuff, get you about 12 to 14 points, go off at times, and as you said, shoot the ball quite a bit because that's the role that they're asking to come off the bench and play. I
mean, the real rub of it, though, is you've got 2 guys in Gordon and Oubre who should both be coming off the bench in a perfect world, which is part of the reason why. Part of the reason is also because this is Daryl's last real crack to get a rotation player, but part of the reason why we'll be spending a lot of January and February talking about trade candidates. They're not perfect. Kelly Oubre's borderline non-shooting, and his numbers are low enough where like you will abandon him in the playoffs. That's a factor. That's a significant factor. He's not a perfect 5th starter, but you're working with what you have. And his defense that was the one thing that very consistently impressed me last year was his defense, his defensive buy-in, his versatility. I think that's probably why I put him in that 5th starting spot. Gordon is definitely a better shooter. Gordon has some defensive versatility because of his wingspan and his strength. He's lost a step over the last couple of years.
Does he still?
I mean, some. He's not anywhere near perfect. He's probably more versatile than he is competent as a one-on-one defender.
Right.
None of them are perfect.
It's easier to get away with his issues playing with Joel Embiid behind him and not next to Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Will probably help him a little bit. But, yeah, he didn't look great last year on that front.
Yeah, and his was a lot of frustration, too, just with that situation that was going on in Phoenix. And I always give a lot of leeway to guys that, number one, playing with Joel Embiid, but number 2, when you're a veteran like that who does have a good defensive profile, even though you get older, you still know angles, you know where to be, a good team defender for what you're asked to do, and then the big fella will clean up a lot and stay out of foul trouble in that spot overall. Bree, where you want to go next with our lineups here? We'll go to the Embiid lineups, Tyrese Maxey off the floor. And this is where it got a little bit interesting because I kept one in there.
Derek and I were very close.
I kept one in there for a specific reason, but let's go to yours first. Embiid, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Eric Gordon. You went with Derek. You went with Reggie Jackson over Kyle Lowry. Kyle, you went with Lowry over Jackson. Derek, start with you. Why Jackson over Lowry?
I just think Jackson has a little more in terms of pick and roll playmaking. So pairing that with Embiid when Max is off the floor, that's sort of my justification for that. I also think it's probably a little bit easier to play Kyle off ball in lineups with Tyrese. So I thought that would be a more natural fit on that group. And then, like I said, with Martin, I just want him on the floor to see whether or not that catch and shoot proficiency that he's shown over the past can be ramped up on higher volume.
None of us had KJ Martin in that grouping there.
Some of that on my wall. So we'll get to my part on Ricky and KJ in a little bit, but part of that is wish casting, I would say, like hoping that they'll play Ricky more than expecting. I think KJ, if I had to guess based on what we saw last year, KJ will be given the opportunity first.
Yes.
I also sort of just looked at like, all right, I'm going to say that Nick has like a 9 to 10 man regular rotation in the regular season. I'm trying to guess the regular rotation rather than going 11, 12, 13 deep.
Yep, absolutely. So, Kyle, your part, Lowry in front of Jackson. We already talked about the KJ Martin piece. Why do you lean more that direction?
I mean, I just think
Nick Nurse, baby.
Nick Nurse started him last year, right? Like this is, I mean,
but that was more because he damn near had to.
It's
he
also because he loves the band.
But he
That
loves
too.
him. And I think part of the reason they were able to sell Lowry on coming year is like, hey, Nick Nurse is going to play you. It's part of the political side of things. Once again, now he also got a little bit of extra money last year, which is it's not a non-thing. But so in those, I wanted to put Lowry and Gordon out there, assuming that they're going to play. If they're going to play next to one another at any point, I want them on the floor with Joel. Like just Joel, figure it out. If Joel's on the floor in the regular season, he's going to be able to buoy these minutes. He's got a couple of athletic defenders in Martin and Oubre. Then you got some floor spacing, some veteran savvy between the other two. Really what I was trying to do is just like give Tyrese Paul, give Tyrese like a second star and some other guys around him who can help. Joel can basically figure out anything. So I don't know if any of us are factoring Jared McCain into the rotation. I feel like my expectation is no right now. But if you were going to put him in, I think it has to be in these minutes with Joel to have him behind him as like the world-saving defensive force. But yeah, I will say as I looked at it, I don't love the combinations as much as I hoped. Because again, they just keep signing a bunch of 6'1" and 6'2" guys. There are only so many wings that you can play when you're like a third of your roster is guards.
Well, that was part of my issue. I'm like, all right, where am I going to put Kyle on this? I actually don't have Kyle on this at all. And part of that reason is there's just so many of those types where I want size on the perimeter.
Well, so I don't have Reggie for basically the same reason. I don't think you can. It also is not conducive to either of their success to be like, Kyle, you come in for 4 minutes with Joel, then you're off. Reggie, you play 4 minutes with Andre Drummond, 4 to 6 minutes with Andre, and then they both play like 8 to 12 minutes a game. Like, I don't think that's any way to have a productive spell as a backup point guard. That's a tough job base level, let alone if you're doing it in these really compressed shifts.
There are enough wings on this roster right now where when they're healthy, you should not see Tyrese Maxey and Kyle Lowry. You should not see Tyrese Maxey and Reggie on the floor at the same time. But I'm a little worried that these are players with enough stature and, like Kyle mentioned earlier, enough expectation that you're going to see some suboptimal lineups because of that.
So knowing what Nick Nurse did a season ago where Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris came off the floor at the same time, Joel Embiid, those minutes, as you guys put in your next 5 with the Embiid minutes, I recognize that. I considered that, but I also looked at it. I went with Lowry over Jackson, and I went with George number 1 because of the extra ball handling on the floor. Staying for a few more minutes, not necessarily he's going to be out there for the entire time because he is going to play a majority of the time there with Tyrese Maxey. But I went with George because of the ball handling aspect of it with Lowry. Yes, Gordon can do some things, but I think I would prefer more to have Paul George with the ball in his hands with Lowry out there because sometimes Lowry's going to play off the ball too, where they're not looking for him to score, but we're looking at him doing some other different things that he does out there on the floor. A lot of times we can't even predict, and that's not even shown on the stat sheet. That's us watching and talking about it later. and all of that. So I went with George there. We all agreed on the Gordon piece and the Embiid part. And the only reason I went with Ricky over Kelly Oubre is because I thought that Kelly's going to come off the floor at some point. Number one, I'm not even factoring this in, but this is, it's funny. He's going to get in foul trouble sometimes, but he's going to come off the floor, and that's just a must. But it was more of, as we just talked about KJ Martin, wish casting on the Ricky growth, that you're still looking for that wing out there that may do some fun things out there on the floor that's going to wreak some havoc with the 10 to 15 minutes that he may get on any particular night, and just do things that we saw in the Washington game, in the San Antonio game later, but earning the trust a little bit earlier in training camp, in these early runs, for Nick Nurse to actually call on his number to give him an opportunity to play with that second unit a little bit more, and some time out there with Joel. Because when we talk about the rebounding, who's going to go out there and crash the glass with Joel Embiid? Ricky Council will go out there and do that, as we talk about the two-handed rebounding quite often, where some of these others may not do that. So that's why I went with Ricky. Gene said Devon loves Ricky Council. Look, I like Ricky Council. The guys can attest for it, even though I wasn't here, and we would talk about Turk and Ricky, and I was big on Ricky. The guys were really big on Turk. And it was really just because of the shooting that Ricky didn't have that they leaned more Turk and I leaned Ricky. But he showed us stuff where it became a fun show bit for us, but more like, no, the guy might be able to actually play a little bit and contribute with these minutes, with Embiid, with George, with Maxey as well, and impact games and help you win like he did against San Antonio and Washington, both on the road. That's why I went with Ricky Council there. That's my reasoning. It may not work at all. We may not see that at all. But right now, on July 26th, as we project these lineups and these rotations and all, I could see an opportunity there for him where some of those things factor into it, and he just goes out there and does the Crash Bandicoot Ricky Council stuff and just has at it out there on the floor.
I want to talk some more about Ricky. I want to talk some more about Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson in a moment, because I think that's a potential, let's say, source of contention down the road for the team.
Oh, no, so Jared McCain, though. Look at that.
Well, we'll get to that as well after we talk about a couple of our good friends who help us keep the lights
here
on
the PHLY Sixers podcast.
So, guys, we all think the Sixers have a bright future this season, right? You might even say the future is bright.
It's very bright.
And if you're preparing for a bright future, as I've told you many times on this show, get ready with our friends at Shady Rays, who have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames, crystal clear optics, makes them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. Devon is putting a pair of them on some of our letters here on the desk. I did not put those shades on because I think between my current shirt and my getup, I would have looked a little bit questionable. Perhaps like an undercover agent of some sort, but they are very stylish. They look much better on Devon. They look much better on Derek. That's more a reflection of your boy here. I have my Shady Rays that I love at home that I like to at least convince myself I look stylish when I'm wearing them. But that's again, reflection of me, not the shades. They're great. Bring them to the beach. Bring them to the Grateful Dead concert at the Sphere, just in case. Didn't know if the lights would be too bright. Shout out to Jared Allen on that one. Also have them in the car to make sure my eyes are protected when I'm going to work, coming home from work, driving to the beach, whatever I'm doing. I know Shady Rays has my back, and if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, you don't need to sweat it because they have the most insane protection in all of eyewear, with every pair backed by lost or broken replacements. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com, use code PHLY for 35% off the polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
And Derek, as we talk a little baseball here, getting ready for our team here at PHLY Phillies. They have a big event coming up here on Tuesday for the trade deadline special. MLB trade deadline live show July 30th. That's 5 to 7 from the, look at that, Billy Murphy's Irish Saloon. Folks, just get ready to go hang out because guess what? The Phillies are already active. They go and acquire an outfielder today. They go and get Austin Hayes from the Baltimore Orioles, Derek, help out in the outfield a little bit. Maybe there's potential for another reliever. Why? Because they just got rid of Sir Anthony Dominguez in that deal to Baltimore, along with Christian Pache. So Now, as a result, they're already active, man. They already got things going. Could they do something else? How'd you like the trade?
It's okay.
All right.
Okay, we'll see.
Got another outfielder.
Tough critic over there.
Another outfielder to go out there with those guys. Maybe bump Johan Rojas down a tad every now and again. Brandon Marsh as well, but they did so. Big trade deadline special coming up 5 to 7 again on Tuesday with the PHLY Philly show. Jamie, Renee, Tyler, all the info you need. Hope you're able to join them. They had the emergency pod earlier, so when you're done with us, go check that out a little bit later. And when we talk about hanging out with the ladies, Jess, Winona, Val, everybody going to hang out a little bit next season, basketball season, you should be a diehard member because that's the easiest way for you to get all the info on what we need to do at allphly.com, writing stories about Jared McCain, writing stories about Eric Gordon and everything that these guys do here. Training camp underway for Bo and Zach. Les Bowen writing stories there, allphly.com. Charlie pumping out stories about Mishkov. Jim Salisbury about the trade going down. All these Phillies things.
And here's a quick sidebar on the Discord. We had one of our Discord members pose a question. There's a food channel within the Discord and said, hey, everyone, I need to recommend a Bucks County cheesesteak to a friend who is in a certain area that's house shopping and is just needs something to eat today. I want to point them in the right direction. There were dozens of responses from people like, you got to go here. You got to try here. Like, this place is well known for, they got a great pizza steak. And so we have all these little, subsections of the community where people help each other out. We're talking about movies. We're talking about all kinds of things. It's something that I miss about, I think, what Twitter used to be or what my Twitter experience used to be. Our Discord has become this great place to talk, not just about Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, even the college teams, but all the other little side topics we have going on in our lives. So it's been a great part of our diehard program. So I recommend it for that, but for all the other reasons Devon listed as well.
So lay it out there, folks. Allphly.com. Sign up, tell a friend so you can take advantage of these cool things also. And you can also maybe get into a discussion about Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson and how there might be a little bit of fun going on with that one once the season gets underway. I'd imagine training camp is going to be active.
Yes. So here's what I would say. And I say this as a compliment. If Reggie Jackson is the backup point guard on this team and Kyle Lowry's role is minimized, Kyle Lowry is not going to be happy. That is not a guy who, even as recently as when he was in Miami, has taken it well when he's been told by a coach or a team, hey, your role is going to be scaled back a bit here. He is not that kind of person.
Even if he's in the rotation, his role better be scaled back.
Listen, all I'm saying is Kyle Lowry is coming back here not to be the Philadelphia mascot, not to be the Udonis Haslem of the Philadelphia 76ers. Kyle Lowry wants to play basketball. And so if Reggie, I don't know Reggie as well as I know Kyle, either locally or just in general. I think from what I have heard, he's a good locker room guy, all that. This is not about guys being good people. It's about having competitors that are similar in that they're smallish backup point guards who are going to be fighting for essentially the same role. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. And I think if one guy manages to win that job outright, there could be some, I wouldn't call it fireworks, but there could be some, let's call them grumbles behind the scenes.
Well,
is that fair to say?
His coach is Nick Nurse. I don't think he has to worry about that because Kyle Lowry is going to have that possible advantage when it comes to those minutes. But no, you're absolutely right. If Kyle Lowry is not playing those backup minutes at that guard spot over Reggie Jackson, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Yes, that would be fun.
Just throwing it out there as we move through the rotation here. Do we want to move to the next group of guys?
Yes, the non-starter Embiid.
The Maxey minutes is what we could call
minutes
them.
Or the Maxey minutes overall. We pretty much agreed on everything 1, 3, 4, and 5. We did. It was the 2 that we disagreed on. Kyle went with Maxey and Lowry in the backcourt. I went with Maxey and Oubre. Maxey Gordon for Derek. And start with you, Derek. You guys went with Ricky Council at the, let's just say the 4 spot. I stuck with Caleb Martin. Derek, why'd your lineup look that way?
Well, I mostly went with Ricky because I couldn't not have Ricky in my rotation.
Got to have Ricky.
Felt like a little piece of me would have died inside.
That's right.
So this was the lineup I felt most comfortable putting him on there.
He's one of
us. And I
us.
also just wanted a little bit of chaos. I thought this was a lineup where they could force some turnovers,
Yes.
get out in transition, help Maxey push the ball a little bit. Drum could clean up the glass and then just sit back and wait. The combination of Maxey with the ball and then, George, who's really good at forcing turnovers, Ricky, who I think can force some turnovers, Gordon, who could help space the floor. That's mostly where my head was at on that one. I don't necessarily love it. I don't love the Maxey-Gordon backcourt defensively. I worry about that a little bit. But
good news is I have Maxey Lowry, which is
it's not
all the
any better.
height in the world.
But I thought that maybe their ability to force turnovers would help them overcome that.
So what you're seeing I think the difference between what Derek and I did and how Devon set it up is the downstream effect of we kept Caleb and Kelly out there with Joel. And that's why I think Ricky makes sense with this group. I just think if you're going to play Ricky or KJ, I'd rather gamble on playing that type of guy with Maxey and Paul than with Joel, where you're going to mess up your spacing in some regard with Andre Drummond on the floor base level. So I'd rather just keep the competent-ish shooters in Caleb Martin. And I mean, we can argue about Oubre, certainly, but Lowry and Gordon in that backup group with Joel. And so in this one, you're building around Tyrese and Paul. You bring in that injection of athleticism in Ricky Council. You have another ball handler in Lowry who, how much is that worth in this group? I don't know. And then there's Drummond, who with the 2 little guards on the floor, you better hoover up every goddamn rebound, Andre, because nobody else except for maybe Ricky is going to be able to. But that's where I'd prefer to take the chance on Ricky in this group where they have 2 stars on the floor, 2 guys who are high-level shooters on top of that. You just say, Ricky, I don't care what you do except for play 100 miles an hour and just fly into people and chase down rebounds.
His 100
That's your
miles
job.
per hour versus Tony Roten's 100 miles per hour is totally different. And it's very good. Well, again, no KJ Martin, though, in any of these lineups here. Before we get to mine,
I do think that it's basically, if Ricky's not in that spot, you put KJ there.
Yeah.
I think KJ will probably get those minutes if I had to
agree.
guess out of the shoot. I would prefer to see Ricky get the opportunity.
You hear us, Nick? That's what we think.
Go
Ricky.
get him, Nick.
I know.
Go get those. Give him those minutes, Nick. Yeah, but no, and for mine, I'll look. I have it here on the screen. So, Bree put it back up there. That's why she's the best. Maxey, Oubre, and George. So talked about why I kept George a little bit with Embiid, but we know with Maxey it's going to be really George. And I kept
Is Paul
Oubre
George
in
going to get a break at some point?
No, he's not.
You're
That's-
running him into the damn ground.
That's
That's
right.
the only reason I didn't put
What
him
the
on my
hell's
Embiid
wrong
lineup.
with you, Devon? He's 34 years old. He's going to die.
$212 million.
He's going to play 45 minutes.
$212 million.
Devon Thibodeau
worth of
over
minutes.
here.
Damn right, man. Get ready, Paul. Get ready. So I put Oubre with him there, Martin and Drummond. And certainly if we go the other way, and I don't disagree with these guys, we think alike in a lot of these lineups in a lot of ways, but going in a different direction there, yeah, I went with Oubre, Martin standing in there basically with Drummond as the other guy. Gordon would be good for his shooting and having those players out there with him. But getting those rebounds, the way that he attacks the glass, Andre Drummond, we all agree with that. The Ricky part certainly makes sense because I said the same thing for Joel Embiid. Attack the glass, go out there and snatch those boards. You're going to get that. And also, again, having Paul George out there with Maxey, which is most likely going to be the combination, 2 ball handlers right there, maybe Lowry sometimes, maybe Gordon sometimes, maybe Reggie Jackson sometimes as well, maybe Jarrett McCain from time to time. We'll see how that plays out. But Ricky will certainly go out there and help out on the glass the way that he needs to. But the other part of it is you got some depth here. I mean, we've discussed it, period, as the roster started to come into place during this offseason. But we've thrown a lot of different variations, and none of them were just bad because they have players that Nick Nurse can now Kyle just go all over the place looking down his bench and saying, who am I going to lean on here?
I'm just still cracking up at the idea of Paul George.
48 minutes, baby.
You got the 4th year in the max deal. You're playing 48, you piece of shit. It's like Devon is just on the sideline like Bobby Knight. Like, get back in there.
Play that 48, man. That's it. Hey, listen. Look, you come in here, you get 212, trying to win. What did we talk about yesterday? Do you win now or not? Get out there and win, Paul George.
We got 2 years. We're using every single minute you got, buddy.
You get a day off every now and again. But the talent is...
No, the team is very good.
Pretty deep.
I have some concerns about, again, the chat keeps hammering me for it. It's like a lot of short guys. All of them can't play or play together is the concern that I have. I do think when you get to the playoffs, assuming that you can keep people healthy and you shrink it down to like 8 guys, that's when I think you'll really see this team shine, right? Like I do think they'll be a good regular season team, but when you kick a couple of these, I was going to say kick some of these small people out, but they're like an inch shorter than I am or like right at my height. When you kick like one of these guys out of the rotation and you're playing wings for like 45 out of 48 minutes, playing multiple athletic wings at a time, that's going to be such a sea change from everything we've seen for this team for years and years where they never had any playable wings in the playoffs. And so you are starting Kyle Lowry and playing him way too many minutes. The options are good. And I just think like if we didn't hammer it home enough, the foundational guiding belief behind how I set the rotation was Joel will win minutes. It almost doesn't matter who's on the floor with him. What matters is that second group, or really the third group, I guess, the second bench group that's got Tyrese on it, if that group can at least draw even, ideally win minutes, you can win a title. And so that's why you have to put Paul George with Maxey to me. Make those Maxey non-Joel minutes as good as they can possibly be, because when you have the full crew assembled, they'll be great. When Joel's on the floor by himself, they'll be good. Minimum, they will hold the fort. They won't lose those minutes. We've seen it before, the plus minus, the crazy negative when Joel's off the floor. Just get by in those minutes, and that is all it's going to take.
Yeah, I mean, I think there wasn't any real question whether or not Maxey would be on, or Paul George would be on the Maxey lineups. Mm-hmm. The only question was whether or not you also then put him on the Embiid lineups and run him into the ground and have him dead and tired for the playoffs. And that's the path that Devon chose. It is going to be a little bit of, trying to figure out, you've got Maxey, Paul George, and Drummond base. Which, if you're going to die, which way you're going to die? Are you going to put more switchable wings on there? Are you going to put more shooting out there? How are you going to go about that? It is going to be fun where like now we have sort of a base level of where our heads are at. You assume there's going to be one more signing here over the next couple of weeks to fill that 14th spot. But for the most part, this is who you're going to go into the season with. Like, does our mindset change at all? But more importantly, when we see this in action, which of these do we go, oh shit, that was a dumb assumption. Let's pivot off of that. And really what the next question is, what do we need at the trade deadline to really feel comfortable going in playoffs? Because there are still a number of players on here. Like, I'm not sure I love Eric Gordon being 25 plus in the playoff
Jared
rotation.
McCain didn't make it for any of us, which that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Yep. And if Embiid is not starting, of course, Drummond will start. How much does a Bodner then factor in, or is it KJ Martin?
Well, yeah, I think on those nights, in those games, I think he'll be the true backup. Now he'll probably only play, assuming you can keep Andre out of foul trouble, he'll probably only play 10 to 15 minutes, Bona, but he'll certainly get an opportunity. And Nick made this point the other day, they have enough older guys that they're going to try to manage in the regular season that this is like the fully healthy, 9-10 man rotation. Mm-hmm. There are going to be a lot of nights where Joel's taking a night off.
Oh, yeah.
They might give Paul George a night off. They might give Kyle Lowry quite a bit of time off this year. That might be one way that you avoid the Reggie Jackson Lowry thing.
Today's a Reggie game, tomorrow's a Kyle game.
Lowry, hey, you're off tonight. You're just not playing.
And we saw that last season.
Keep your ass at home. Yeah, like they managed him last year. So that might be a way to work around it if we're looking ahead. But Yeah, so I would say as it stands right now, Jared McCain, get ready to spend a lot of time in Delaware this season, but it wouldn't shock me if he shoots the hell out of the ball in camp and somehow makes a name for himself or in the rotation. Who knows? We're a long ways off. That's why it's the way too early prediction.
Way too early. And at least right now for all of us, we did at least have Drummond and Gordon as 6 and 7. And some combination of Lowry and Jackson as 8th, and then Ricky, KJ Martin thereafter for us helping out Nick Nurse, which he asked us to do way too early on July 26th. Let's get to the Super Chats here towards the end of the show. Sean Wofford just wanted to say hello and donate 99 cents, and we appreciate it. It was his 3rd Super Chat. I saw it pop up on the screen, and we appreciate that as well. We got a few more jumping in here. You better love somebody. Better love somebody. Can we sign JT Thor? You
Derek's
got
guy.
He knows ball.
You better love somebody. Derek just gave you the stamp of approval. You know ball. Next time when we
had a good game in that South Sudan Team USA game.
In all honesty, though, like there's not going to be a 4th center.
Yeah.
They're not going to use that final spot on that.
And whenever we do get, we'll let you know. You were just calculated. That's a good thing. All right, Barbara Thorne also here with the Super Chat late in the game. But it's good to see the first Super Chat from Barb. Hey, Barb, any chance they trade for Cody Martin and combine the Twins like they were in Charlotte?
Like a science experiment? Like, can I put Cody on Caleb's shoulders and do like a Voltron
compared
Martin?
To the rest of the
Vincent
bench?
basketball, man.
Charlotte is always probably looking to trade somebody to get somebody out of there.
And I would say, here's the
thank you, Barb.
So to build off of Barbara's question, and thank you for your first ever Super Chat on the stream. We appreciate that. One thing that is really interesting about this year specifically, it's the Cooper Flag year. There are a lot of bad teams who are going to do anything that they can to get worse. If that means recouping a little less value for a veteran player pre-deadline, they will move them. So, maybe Cody Martin is someone that you would look at. I've not generally been the biggest
I was going to say, with the way he's shot over the last 2 years, maybe you just let him cook.
The difference between him and Caleb has at least been like right around the average line. His brother has struggled a heck of a lot more. So I'm not sure he's the guy necessarily, but I think there will be a lot of veterans available on bad teams from, let's call it the December 15th date right up until the deadline, because these people are failing for flag.
Did you see Brooklyn?
The motto for the season.
You see what Brooklyn did, bringing in your guy? Killian Hayes, man.
Yeah.
The fucking tank commander, baby. Brooklyn traded McHale. You got your guy out of there, and then it's like, all right, it's on. We're tanking.
Remember when Killian demanded a trade?
Oh, hell
and they're like, oh, no,
one of the most hilarious.
We're just going to waive you, and nobody's going to pick you up.
Here you go. Here's this trade. Free agent trade. There you go. That's your trade. Kyle, you got to get a roll call at the end of the week. We do have to get
a roll call before we get on up out of here on a Friday.
The end of the week roll call.
Thank you to all my wonderful people who are in here as always. Thank you to Martian Litz, Eugene Ross,
Gene.
Darkness.
Whoa.
Rick Morse, Flyers in 7. My girl Winona.
Hey, Nona.
Hey, Aaron. Pumpa's coming in from overseas. Money Mar. Chedfa. Rick Morse. Bootzilla.
Boots.
Dave Dewar. Slade.
Dave, what are you doing?
We had Barbara with her first ever Super Chat on the stream.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you to Barbara. We got Goya Gaming.
Shout
out to Goya.
I like it. Welcome.
Brian Knight. Who else is in here?
Can you sing, Brian?
I see some French flags scrolling past me right now.
They want Joel to get back his passport.
Was there another Brianna? I think Brianna Torres, I believe, is in here today.
Was in our late yesterday.
I was going to say, I meant to get to her yesterday.
What up,
we
Brianna?
just ran out of. We got Phi Chi.
Who
are our other Super Chatters in here today?
Well, not Super Chats.
We had You Better Love Somebody. We got Sean.
Love Somebody.
We got Wellen Kang, who told me I need to write a novel and that they'll be one of the first people to buy it. Thank you so much. Everybody, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live.
Thank you, Mr.
Hit the thumbs up button, and we'll be back Monday. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.